Did you ever feel your infertility was a byproduct of past sexual sins? What's up, Momos? Welcome to episode 3. We took a break. Infertility Q&A. My infertility journey. I haven't actually had a sit-down conversation with you all in this series yet, so I'm excited to do this. Obviously, last episode I was sitting and talking throughout some of the video, but I feel like that was more like video diaries to myself, and then I just happened to share them with you all. But today I'm really talking to ya, so I just want to first say thank you guys so much for the incredible, I don't even know, just what has taken place in me sharing these videos has been I just didn't expect it. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't really have any expectations. I was just like, I'm just gonna share this with people because this is my life and I happen to be a content creator as well. And I am not the type of person who can just make content just to make content. I need to be real, and just so happens that I'm going through some stuff. So here we are. On Instagram, I asked you guys to write in your questions related to infertility, my infertility journey specifically. And you guys came through. You asked a lot of questions, and so I'm gonna try to answer as many as possible. I don't want this video to be 40 hours long, so we'll see what we end up answering. But before we get into the questions, I do want to just kind of give you a bit of an update. So I ended episode 2 with the fact that we were going to Florida and we weren't going to be able to do any treatments. Basically, I called my doctor and I had started my period, I think December 5th or something like that. And I called my doctor and let her know, and I told her that we were going to be in Florida until this certain day. And she was like, okay, well, that is the day that you guys would need to be here to get the ultrasound, because I can't take a trigger shot unless I've gone in and gotten an ultrasound to make sure that everything is where it needs to be. My eggs have whatever. I was like, well, we're gonna be in Florida, so, and that's it was the day before we were gonna be coming home was the day I needed to be in the doctor's office. So she was like, well, if you guys came home a day early, we could get you in. Other than that, you guys can just, have sex on certain days. Here are the days. She gave me what dates I should be ovulating. She's like, you can just do that and just, do it the natural way this month. I was asking Paul, he was sitting there with me. I was like, should we try to come home a day early? And he was like, if you want to come home a day early, we can. I'm sure my parents would probably be fine with it, because we were going to Florida with his family. Well, I was like, first of all, every time I go to Florida, I want to stay way longer than our intended trip. So I'm not going to come home a day early. I'm not going to make Paul's parents, even though they probably would have for me, I'm not going to make them come home a day early. I'm not going to have Paul do that. I'm just not going to stress about it. So I was like, no, we're just going to do it the natural way and take a break. So the month of December was just a nice time of rest. We had sex on 3 certain days that we were supposed to, or whatever, supposedly supposed to. And I took a pregnancy test actually this morning, which when you're watching it, it won't be that morning. You get it. It was negative, or not pregnant is what it likes to tell me. And I wasn't surprised. I didn't expect to be pregnant this month, specifically because we really weren't trying. I didn't want to even think about it this month, and honestly that was just really good for me to not think about it. Obviously, it's still sad. I like I shared in the last episode, there's still always this little hope in me because, you know, so many people share their stories, and one story that has been shared over and over is we did 2 cycles or we did 3 cycles of infertility treatment or 4 cycles of infertility treatment, and then we decided to take a break and we were going to start up the next month, and on that break I ended up pregnant. No fertility treatments at all, just on our own naturally. And so of course I'm like hoping, oh, this could be our story, like I could end up pregnant naturally without any help. And that's not the case, but that's okay. So here we are after the break, waiting for my period to start now, and then we start round 3 of fertility treatments. So, all right, with that little segment over now, let's get into the Q&A. The first question I want to answer is, and I don't even know if I have it saved, but it was asked so many times, I feel like, anyways, it felt like a lot of times, in the comment section of episode 2. The question was, why even bother taking a pregnancy test? Why not just wait until your period starts or you have a missed period? The answer to that is, I have to take a pregnancy test on a certain cycle day. It's usually cycle day 28. And if it comes back pregnant, I know that I have to continue taking a certain medication that will basically help my pregnancy and help me not miscarry. If I take that pregnancy test and it comes back not pregnant, I know that I have to stop taking that certain medication so that I can have a period. If I keep taking that medication and I'm not pregnant, I won't have a period, or I'll have a very light, it won't be a real period. And so I have to make sure that I stop taking it if I find out I'm not pregnant, and then I'll have my period and we start all over. So everyone's like, why put yourself through that much torture of taking all of those pregnancy tests? And don't get me wrong, I would love to not take this many pregnancy tests, but I have to. So there we have it. All right, next question. If you could have the choice to go back 5 years and get pregnant, would you? I think that this is a really good question. I actually read this question to Paul, and him and I were talking about it a few nights ago. Both of our answers were probably not, because we've learned so much in these past 5 years. So much. And we've come such a long way in our marriage, in mental health, in spiritual growth, in everything, finances, like everything. We've just grown a lot. But if I had gotten pregnant 5 years ago when we like totally gave this up to the Lord, I fully believe and trust that the Lord would have given us the tools and wisdom that we needed to raise a child who was loved and well taken care of and wonderful. So personally, I would not choose to go back 5 years and get pregnant, but I believe that the Lord would have provided if we had gotten pregnant 5 years ago. Okay, next question. This is a question that is asked literally all the time. And I'm not gonna lie, this question, and I don't want any of you all to feel bad if you've ever asked me this question, because it's fine, but this question in particular seems to get to me one of the most, or almost the most. Has Paul been tested? Here's just a little insight. If you go to a fertility specialist, if you even go to your OBGYN and you tell them we've been trying to get pregnant for a year and still nothing, the first thing an OBGYN or a fertility specialist or even a family doctor most likely will say is, let's get the man tested. Because that's the easiest thing to do, to find out if something is wrong with the man anyways before we move on to the woman's stuff, because the woman's stuff is just a lot more intricate and annoying. But yes, so years ago, Paul was tested, everything is good and dandy, and then even recently, he was looked at again, everything is good and dandy and healthy. I think I just get frustrated with that question because I'm just like, duh. And that's just my flesh, so I'm sorry for that to be my response, my first response. But yeah, like that's just the first thing you do in fertility journey type stuff. So, or at least it should be. If you have a decent doctor, they're gonna know, like, let's test the man first before the woman. So yes, Paul has been tested, all is well. Another question is, what's Paul's role in the infertility journey? I'm interested in the men's perspective. So either episode 4 or 5, I'm going to have Paul sit down and I'm going to interview him and get the man's perspective, because I know that that's honestly, it's not really talked about very much. So I think that's going to be a really cool episode and very beneficial for men and women and myself, honestly, because there might be some questions that I ask him that I haven't really asked him yet. So stay tuned for that. But Paul has been amazing, and I'll talk more about that in the episode. But he's been nothing but amazing, wonderful, and a true steady rock for me. I feel like it's getting darker as we go. Alright, next question. What not to say to someone with infertility. So I started making a little list, and I thought like this actually could be a fun episode of like what not to say to someone who's struggling with infertility. We'll see if I do that. But I wrote just a few things down. 1, you haven't really been trying for that long. How about just stop trying to get pregnant, then you'll get pregnant? Well, just tried that, didn't get pregnant, try that for the first 1.5 to 2 years of us not using contraception, didn't get pregnant. So I'm just like, yeah, that's just not how it works sometimes. I know that there are plenty of stories of women trying to get pregnant, doing IVF, doing whatever, and they don't get pregnant, and then they decide, okay, we're gonna adopt, and as soon as they start to adopt, they get pregnant. Like, I know that those stories are out there. I know women who have those stories. That's just not my story right now, okay? So don't force that on me. Alright, we're gonna keep going. I apologize for the noise in the back. It started pouring rain. So yeah, bear with me. Oh, another thing you should not say is, maybe you should pray the curses off of you. You might have generational curses. I've been told this many times, and I just kind of, say thanks and move on. I understand people in the more charismatic or hyper-charismatic side of the church and the faith, that this is kind of a major thing that is talked about, of like, if you're not getting pregnant, or if you're praying for healing and that hasn't come through, like, you might have generational curses that are keeping Hey, this isn't your interview video.
Hey guys. Just act like I'm not here.
Yeah, right. I was just listing off things that you should never say to someone struggling with infertility, and one of the things is you might have curses or generational curses on you.
Yeah, that definitely hurts. I mean,
it doesn't really hurt, it's just annoying to me. My stance is, I accepted Jesus into my life. I've been wiped white as snow, and the things of my family, of like things that my family struggled with, I believe that there are like sins that you might be prone to, but like
so
the Lord gives you freedom.
Yeah, I think that kind of going back to like the hyper-charismatic stuff we've been talking about is a characteristic in some hyper-charismatic circles, And yeah, I just don't know if I'm really buying it. And it just, I don't know. I mean, you guys can think differently if you want, but I think I'm on the same page as you are.
Yeah, so I don't get like offended or anything when people say that to me. I'm just kind of like, okay, moving on. Yeah, so that's just a few of the things that you shouldn't say to people. I might do a whole episode on that. Stay tuned, but man, this lighting keeps getting like really bright, then really dark, then really bright.
Just let it do its thing.
Alright, next question. Okay, this is another very commonly asked question. Some in genuine sincerity and some in total troll asking ways. How do you decide it's okay to use artificial methods for fertility but not for birth control? Or why do you think it's not okay to use birth control but it is okay to use fertility stuff? So I think it's just like two totally different things, but my short and concise answer to this is birth control is literally preventing a child, is preventing life from possibly being created. And then taking birth control out of it and just like not using birth control is you're leaving it open to God's plan, whether He wants you pregnant or not. And then using fertility treatments is like, one, we live in a fallen world, and so just kind of like
just like anyone would go to a doctor for any reason.
Right. You get cancer, you're going to a doctor to get treatment. We live in a fallen world. You've been diagnosed with cancer, like, okay, that means you cannot go and get treatment because you're getting in the way of God's plan. Some people might say that if they're really extreme, but I say go get treatment if you can. Fertility, you're trying to get pregnant, you've been diagnosed with infertility. Well, there are treatments out there that you can get that can possibly help you be fruitful and multiply. I mean, that's one of God's commands. It's one of His things that He tells His children to do is be fruitful and multiply, and He says that children are a blessing. And so I look at it like, I've got to do what I can do to try to get pregnant, and then the rest is up to the Lord. So there's only so much fertility treatments that I can do. If the Lord doesn't want me to get pregnant, then I won't, even with fertility treatments. But I don't really think that that's how it works. But as far as birth control goes, like, I don't think I've ever come out and said, like, I think it's a sin to be on birth control. I think when Paul and I first, and you can correct me on that if I have, but I don't think that I have. And when Paul and I came out and made the video sharing that, like, we got off of birth control and whatnot, it really was us just sharing our personal journey and all of that. It was us just sharing like where we felt convicted by the Lord. I felt convicted that I was on birth control because I felt like I was not trusting Him myself. That doesn't mean that you taking birth control, you feel totally fine about it. Like, that doesn't mean, oh, well, you're not trusting God. That's not me saying that. That's not Paul saying that. This is just our story.
Yeah. Our
convictions, and you got to go with what the Lord leads you to do. Now, I do think birth control is terrible for the woman's body, but that's a whole nother thing.
And real quick, going back to your initial point about people saying, and I think a good amount of people that are saying that are coming from a place of offense, because they are offended that you would speak out against birth control. So they're looking, okay, well, you are using medical, advice or help for this. Hypocrite. I think that's the majority of it, and we see that in so many different areas. They flip to the total extreme.
Yeah.
But biblically, I'm sure there's a number of different things you could point to, a number of practical examples, but to make that argument, and you see the Apostle Paul telling Timothy, hey, because of your frequent stomach illnesses, drink some wine. He's kind of given Timothy a practical remedy to help with ailments. But if you were to say, just let God do everything and don't touch it at all, don't intervene at all, then to me that would have been out of place for Paul to say that.
Yeah.
Small example.
That's good.
I'll let you keep answering.
Okay.
You got this, baby. I just wanted to pop in. Haven't been in many of these videos in this banging series.
Well, there's going to be a whole episode, probably episode 4 of Olli.
I just want to show that I am invested in this series and this journey.
Oh, they'll know in episode 4.
Bye, guys.
All right, next question. My miscarriage/fertility struggles occupy my mind all the time. Tips for balancing these thoughts. Well, first I want to say that I am very, very, very sorry for your loss. Personally, I don't understand what it is like to lose a baby, but I know multiple women who have, and I just am so sorry for that loss. For any woman out there who's had a miscarriage, you guys are some of the strongest women out there, in my opinion. As far as not letting these thoughts and trying to get pregnant consume your mind, it is very hard to find that balance, and I think that I do a pretty good job. That's just me saying that about myself. So I don't necessarily have a formula to make sure this doesn't consume your life. But I will say something that has helped me a lot is I had to recognize pretty quickly that trying to get pregnant and becoming a mother is not my identity. As much as I want to be a mother, as much as I want to be a pregnant woman, it's not my identity. It's not something that will fulfill me. Having a child is not going to fulfill my life and all of my longings and desires. And if you can realize that and recognize that, then even though the journey is still challenging and even though you still think about it, obviously that's normal, it doesn't become like all consuming. It doesn't become obsessive because it's not where you find your identity. It's not where you find your hope. My hope is in Christ. My identity is daughter of the King. And so if, I have the label of wife, I am a wife, but that's not my identity. If I become a mother, I am a mother, but that's not my identity. It's just part of me. And so I think that's probably been the biggest thing that's helped me, is recognizing that. So that is what I would encourage you to do. Make sure your identity is firmly built in the Father and nothing and no one else. Your husband can't be your identity. Being a wife can't be your identity. Being a mother can't be your identity. Being a best friend, whatever. Another very popular question that was asked is, has this affected your married sex life? I feel like it's starting to with me, or like, how do you keep sex life alive when you're literally having to have scheduled sex? So, great question.
Hey you guys, it's future Morgan. And I'm also kind of talking quiet because Paul is asleep in the bedroom and I know he can't hear me, but still for some reason I want to talk quietly. I'm interrupting this Q&A because as I was editing this and listening back to my answer about the how do you feel like this has affected your sex life? Do you feel like it's hard to keep the flame alive? Whatever, yada yada. I was listening to myself talk and I was just like, are you being honest, Morgan? And I think that when I was answering this a few days ago, I was being honest. But now looking back on it, I've had more time to think on it and really just whatever. And I just want to share my now answer rather than my past answer. Does that make sense? Okay, so keeping the flame alive. Paul and I have a great sex life. Do we have room to grow? Of course, because we've only been married for 5.5 years and we're going to be married till we're dead, which hopefully is when we're like 90. So we've got at least like 40-50 more years ahead of us to work on our sex life and our communication and all that entails. But for 5.5 years in, we're both very thankful for where our sex life is. With this fertility journey, I don't think we really prepared ourselves, nor did we know we needed to prepare ourselves, because I don't feel like anyone really told us. No one did. We didn't talk to anyone. We didn't really have anyone to talk to. And so we didn't really know what to prepare for or what to expect. And when we started our round 1 treatment of these trigger shots and whatnot, it was a lot of sex. Like, we're talking like 5 to 6 times in a matter of 3-4 days, and one of those days it's twice a day. And don't get me wrong, that's fun and all, but when it's like almost like a pressure of we have to make sure we don't miss this, we have to make sure it's in the morning and in the evening at this time, blah blah blah, like it becomes a lot. And I think 2 months into this, well, technically 3 months in, but third month we took a break, I am starting to notice that I am finding myself getting kind of angry when it comes to sex, which is really annoying and frustrating because I love to have sex with my husband. This is very TMI, but we all know I love TMI. And like, this is literally very recent, within the past few days I'm realizing this, because I've noticed within the past week and a half to 2 weeks, whenever like we go to have sex or I know Paul is desiring sex, I find myself almost like angry towards it, or like, don't really desire that right now. And obviously, like, I don't want that. And I think that now I'm just like, my body and my brain and my spirit, I'm just kind of exhausted from how much sex we've had in trying to have a baby, that like, even when we're having sex just to love one another, I'm getting to the point where I'm like, don't touch me. And so Paul and I have had to communicate about this, and I think something that we've kind of decided or come up with, that I just very recently communicated with him, was I think that after those like 3 to 4 days of us having to have intentional scheduled sex, I need a break of just feeling loved by you without sex. I need to take a break from thinking about the baby or hoping that there's a baby being created in me at that point, and just have a few days off completely. And so that's kind of the conclusion that we've come to as of right now. Could change in a few days, but I think that's where we're at. That feels right to me. I think that I wasn't giving myself a break after those few days that are very intense, and that was starting to like build up in me, and 3 months later I'm like, I need a break. And Paul is very understanding towards that. He's always like, please just communicate with me, like just tell me what you need, we'll work on this together. And I'm really thankful for that. But I will say that even in these past 2-3 months of us doing the infertility treatments, we have done things like use an app to help encourage us in foreplay and whatnot. There's one called Ultimate Intimacy. It was created by a Christian couple. You guys can check that out. Married couples only. And there's these cards called Sexpectations that we got a few months ago that are really cool. I'll link them below. And I think that has helped us immensely. You know, there are other things that I could say, like go buy some cute lingerie, or go on a fun date beforehand, or, you know, go out of your way to make the night special by lighting candles and playing music and whatever. And I think that those things do help, and they've helped Paul and I. But I think communication is the biggest thing that helps keep the flame alive, because you guys can get on the same page. And so those cards, Expectations, are like my number one thing that I recommend from here on out. So check those out. Okay, back to past self.
This next question is a very interesting question that I'm excited to answer. Did you ever feel your infertility was a byproduct of past sexual sins? So I would have been like really shocked by this question a few years ago, but a few years ago, I had a conversation with someone close to me, and they had gone through something really tragic in their life, like years and years ago. And we were talking about it, and they said to me, I think that this happened because God was getting his revenge, or was like seeking justice over my past sins. And I was like, well, hold up, because you were saved during this time of this very tragic thing that happened in your life. So like, what? And to me, that is not a healthy way to look at God. This is my opinion. I do not think that God is out to punish his children who have repented and turned away from their sinful life and have now like dedicated their life to seeking righteousness and seeking him on a daily basis. I think that's just absurd to believe that. So my answer is no. I do not think that I'm being punished because of my past sexual sins. If you guys don't know, I was not a virgin when I met Paul. I had lived in sin with a boyfriend that I had been dating for 3.5 years before him. I think that when I repented of that and I moved on with my life and sought after the Lord, that I was fully forgiven. I was wiped white as snow, and God not only forgave me, but he threw my past sins and failures into the sea. Like, there's a Bible verse, and if I can find it, I'll pop it up here, that basically says God chooses to forget about your past sins. So why would I be being punished right now for my past sins if God doesn't even, like, he's chosen to forget those, you know what I'm saying? So there's that. Next question. Can you share more about why you believe God has promised you a baby? I remember a very specific time, I don't know, 4-ish years ago, when I woke up in the middle of the night out of nowhere and was just wide awake, like from a deep sleep, woke up wide awake and was like, what the heck? And so for some reason I decided to get out of bed. I walked out of our bedroom and into our guest room and just sat down on the floor, and there was a Bible laying there, and so I opened it up, and the first thing that I read was, and I remember reading that and then feeling like the Lord whispered to me, to my heart, to my spirit, whatever. It wasn't like an audible voice. It was just like this inside my head of, this is your daughter's name. I was just kind of like, huh? We had been, having unprotected sex for a year at this point, and I was just kind of like, okay, Lord. So I felt like that was one specific time that I just felt like the Lord was like, this is your daughter's name, you're gonna name her this. And I felt very confident that it was not like you're gonna adopt and her name will be, you're gonna foster. Like, this was, you will deliver a child and you will name her. I've held that very lightly. I'm not grasping onto that, but I would say that that's one reason I feel like the Lord has promised I'm going to have a child, carry it, and deliver it. And another reason, I guess, I think, and this isn't even like, oh, I think the Lord has promised me I'm gonna have a child, but I just desire and have had a deep desire of being a mother since I was 3 years old. Since I could be asked the question of what do you want to be when you grow up, and I would say a mommy. Like, that's just been in my DNA. It's part of who I am. I was a nanny for 10 years and felt like a mother to those children. And so whether it's me having a child on my own through my own body and all, or us adopting, like, I believe that I will be a mother. Alright, you guys, I feel like I answered a lot of questions and there were still way more to answer, so maybe we'll do a part 2 of this. We'll see. Comment below and let me know if you would like to see a part 2. I think it's so cool to let the Lord use my pain and my hurt and my disappointment and make it into something beautiful by creating this community and encouraging so many other women, whether you're struggling with infertility or just an unanswered prayer. I know, like, a lot of you guys shared in my last video in the comments just a prayer, an unanswered prayer that you were carrying into this new year, 2022, and that you feel like even though you're not struggling with infertility, you're still able to relate. And I just think that that is amazing. So Feel free to go through the comments and encourage one another, and just know that I am lifting you all up in prayer as well. I love you all so much. Thank you for watching this. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe. I love to have you a part of this little Momo fam. And I will see you in episode 4.